Hey everybody, we're back with Avengers Twilight issue number 4, where the Red Skull takes over the United States. But a quick recap before we get into the story. Avengers Twilight takes place in a United States that banned heroes after the tragic events of H-Day, in which Ultron enhanced villains try to take over America. In a now dystopian United States, Steve Rogers has returned to the role of Captain America to take his country back, while the Red Skull secretly runs the country from the shadows. In the last issue, Steve and the Defenders went to the Raft prison to retrieve the head of Tony Stark. Steve was forced to fight James, the son of Tony and Janet Van Dyne the Wasp, before being aided by Miss Marvel and Thor. Now, Thor is able to handle the situation fairly readily, even after the Navy and the Air Force arrive, which to me demonstrates just how unprepared this modern world is when it comes to dealing with superheroes and supervillains. And what's funny is one of these Air Force pilots has a picture of Spider Man's mask on his helmet, even though this is a country where heroes are vilified, and there was no way that Spider Man was ever a pro government stooge. Even the superior officer of the Thunderbolts was eager to kill Captain America, who he believed was against America's values. So you'd think having Spider Man's mask on your helmet would be banned in the military. But despite how easily Thor is able to take out the military, there are still a number of injured people, to include the raft scientist and guards. And while they have the opportunity to take out James Stark as well, Cap decides to let him leave as he tells Thor that James needs to think about what he's done. Kind of treating him like a little kid, which is funny, but it definitely sounds like Captain America. But Thor and Miss Marvel help the Defenders to take all of the guards, former prisoners, and scientists back to their hideout, where they utilize the few remaining rations and medical supplies to treat the injured. After Thor uses Mjolnir to recharge the container holding Tony Stark's head, he's able to relay to them that the Red Skull is secretly posing as Kyle Jarvis and runs the country from behind the scenes. This forces the Defenders to reevaluate the situation, as at this point they've mostly been employing hit-and-run tactics to achieve small victories. We also get some answers to the questions we had, like why Thor has been away from Earth this whole time. Basically, he explains that being immortal means having to watch those you know and love suffer and die, and that he didn't have the courage to do so. So more or less, after H-Day, when heroes were forcefully retired and realizing that his friends such as Captain America and Luke Cage and all the rest were going to age while he stayed pretty much the same, I guess he decided to just let things play out and perhaps return 100 years later after the dust had settled. We also learn a bit about what happened to Tony and Jan during H-Day, as while he has a very spotty memory, Tony does remember that on H-Day that S.H.I.E.L.D. was already prepared to turn on the heroes. So America was already tired of superheroes at this point and ready to take them down. And again, I have to note the similarities to Civil War here. So when S.H.I.E.L.D. showed up to the scene of Boston to take out the remainders of the villains, they were also there to take out the heroes as well. And in fact, Tony was captured because he went to try and save his son James, or at least go and get him before he and Jan went on the run. However, he doesn't know what happened to Jan. He doesn't know if she died or if she is also a floating head in a jar. So it's possible that she also could be out there somewhere, and perhaps the Red Skull is holding her, or maybe even Ultron has her. As we know that Ultron, whose mind is partially patterned after Hank Pym, at one point was trying to basically turn the Wasp into his wife, and then he made another robot called Jocasta, I think, whose brain patterns were formatted from Janet Van Dyne's mind. So perhaps the Red Skull captured Wasp and gave her to Ultron as a bargaining chip. But Tony has regained a body of sorts, placing his head in a robotic Iron Man suit, as I assumed he would, and basically catching up with the events of this current world. He's determined that the new Avengers are the biggest obstacle that the Defenders face in getting to Red Skull and taking him down. And since issue 1, I've been really waiting to see what these government Avengers were all about, but I was not expecting what was revealed in this issue. So the Defenders head to the Avengers mansion, which looks exactly like how they remember it, except for the painting of the new Avengers. But when Tony is digging through their computer system to find weaknesses, he discovers that the Avengers are nothing more than holograms, that it's a program possibly created by Ultron, and every newscast that the public has seen was not real. So the Red Skull has created literal fake news, though I wonder if that means that all the disasters and the enemies they faced were also fake, or if it's possible that the government just sent in the military in all those situations, played it off as if these Avengers, which don't really exist, were there to fix the situations. The Defenders think that they now have the advantage because they don't have to worry about facing a super team that they know nothing about. Except that the Red Skull had anticipated that the Defenders would come here and had the mansion rigged to blow. However, the Defenders escaped, and Tony discovered that the Skull plans to take over the country, and in fact has already implemented certain measures, such as having troops take in the President of the United States. Now, by this time, the Red Skull has revealed to James that he is the Red Skull. And he states at the end of this issue that he and James have basically been running the country from the shadows for the past decade, and that he wants to make it official. He wants to publicly take over the country and reassert order. He appeals to James's sense of righteousness, presenting the American people as poor sheep who need a shepherd, and the Avengers as agents of a sort of stagnant chaos, which in a way is kind of true. That's an argument that was demonstrated during Civil War that Tony Stark actually made, where he said that because heroes are operating outside of the law, outside of government jurisdiction, that they kind of uphold this state of constantly fighting villains. The villains escape jail and the heroes fight them again, causing property damage and loss of life. And from the previous issues, we know that James sees it that way as well. And the Red Skull is also drawing on their relationship, as he did raise James and calls him his son. And it's possible that he really does see him that way, even though he's the biological son of one of his greatest enemies. So basically, what this story boils down to is a classic Red Skull versus Captain America showdown. Because the Red Skull has always had some scheme to take over the country, and it always involves him fighting Captain America. I think the story most similar that I can remember would be during the time period when Steve was called the captain after the Commission on Superhuman Activities had fired Steve from the role of Captain America and given that role to John Walker. And then later on, it turned out that the Red Skull was secretly running the commission, or maybe he just had an agent on the inside. That's actually the story that was loosely adapted into The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, except they left out the crucial elements of the Red Skull and Steve Rogers being the one whose role was usurped by John Walker. But this was a really good issue. I still think that this story is being rushed and that they needed more issues. Even though it's following basic elements of stories from the past, I think this alternate universe is interesting enough that it should have had at least 12 issues. There just needed to be more fleshing out of the story before they got to this point where Red Skull is trying to publicly take over America and the reformed Avengers or Defenders are going to take him out. But let me know what you guys think about this issue of Avengers Twilight in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss out on a new video. Thanks for watching.